Autoline Spotlight is presented by Ally. Do it right. On this episode, selling F&I without the F&I manager.
I want to thank you all for joining us on this ongoing series of videos that we're doing looking at the retail side of the business. We've got three important people to talk about that today, including Ron MacEachern. He is the platform president at the Suburban collection, which has Chrysler, Toyota, Volvo, and Ford stores. And great to have you on the show here with us today.
Great to be here.
Also joining us are Gabe Garroni. He's the Vice President of Sales at Ally. Great having you here.
Thank you very much.
And then there's my friend and colleague, Steve Finlay, the Senior Editor at Wards. And Steve, always good to have you on.
Thank you, John. Always good to be here.
The topic that we wanted to talk about today is, can you sell F&I without an F&I person? And we're going to dive into that, but Ron, why don't you kick it off? What are you guys looking at?
Well, the changes are so rapidly coming in that department that, as more and more we get involved with online retailing, we've had to take a look at our business model for financial services. And we've always tried to stay in front of it. We thought maybe 7-8 years ago we went to a menu-based presentation of our financial services products to our customers. And it was a very informative, transparent selection process that we put in front of the customers, and it seemed to, financial services, F&I and dealerships always like the black hole. It's the dark, corners that has a bad reputation, and we've worked really hard to change our way of doing business with that to make it more of a transparent, flowing with our customers, consultative process. Now, now all of a sudden the market changes, so now a lot of our customers are doing their commerce online. And so how do you present the financial services as these important products that have been evolving so much in the past 5 years to be so consumer friendly now? How do you make sure they have an opportunity to look at those products, make a decision on it, and include it in their monthly budget? So obviously our transitional period, from the in-dealership experience to the online experience is, it's changing. It's not a dynamic part of our business right now. We know it's going to be in the future. So we're looking at, we're experimenting with a lot of different things and making the whole transaction one step that they can select their car online, select their financial services, put it in a basket, almost check out 100% and come to the dealership and pick up their car. Sounds simple, but it's those are a lot of dots to connect, and so we're working on it. We're not there yet 100%, but it's a top priority for us right now.
Well, Gabe, how do you make F&I more palatable to the consumer? Because the double-edged sword of F&I is it's a major profit center for the dealership, and yet it consistently comes up as one of the consumer beefs on surveys. Mm-hmm. So what do you do to reconcile those two differences?
Ron actually already touched on it. It's having a process that makes sense to the customer. It's an education process, educate the customers as to what's available to them. We find that our F&I managers tend to be some of the best professionals in the dealership. They're good at what they do. They understand it's time to complete the process is probably the biggest beef, not necessarily the products themselves or the education process. So with the introduction of menu selling, that has helped along the way. That's helped improve the customer experience. I mean, I got into F&I 20 years ago, and menu selling was new. It was revolutionary, and it was like pulling teeth to get finance managers to change their ways. Today, it's commonplace, right? So I guess the real question is, are we due for another evolution in the process?
Ron, Gabe just said something interesting, time. The customer comes in, deals with the salesperson, then they get handed off to the F&I.
Right.
I think, people just start to perceive of, boy, this is taking forever. I just want to get that shiny brand new car I'm lusting after. Is there a way of shortening up the process by maybe even having the salesperson sell this F&I?
There is, that hasn't been a good experience for us. There's so much complexity involved with having the salesperson deal with everything from beginning to end. It really is. It takes a special person to be able to do that. And that probably represents 10% of our staff that are skilled enough to be able to take that from beginning to end. But I think part of the sales process that's taken place, you can take away a lot of those hurdles with the customers as far as the credit search, the shopping at the bank. And immediately when the customer comes in the door, we try to start the financial services process where we can start shopping their rates and start trying to make arrangements for them as they're selecting their vehicle. And then once they come to a final selection of the vehicle, everything's already in the system. And now it's just a matter of talking with the bank and going through a couple of changes on models or additional funding. So it really, from the moment that the customer says yes, in our group, we try to spend 30 minutes then to get them through the financial services process. Sometimes that used to take an hour and a half, and a lot of times the big beef with the customers were, there wasn't enough financial services representatives available to be able to talk to the customer. So they'd go from the buying process to the agreement process, then go wait in the lounge until the F&I manager became available. They'd get a little upset. It might be a busy delivery night where there's several people waiting. They see other people going in the office and they're not getting service. So a lot of it has to do with, okay, we've got a customer, they're ready to go. How do we get them through as quickly as possible, make sure? And we're not, again, 30 minutes is still a lot longer. If they've been there for 2 hours during the selection process, 30 minutes could be very egregious to a customer.
Well, there's 30 minutes and 30 minutes. 30 minutes waiting is different than 30 minutes doing something in the F&I office to get your car.
Exactly.
So, yeah, you got to make good use of that time. Now, I've talked to dealers that have gone to the system of the salesperson doing the F&I work as well. What they say is it requires a lot of training. And I'm not convinced it works, because why would this time be any different if one person's doing it versus two people doing it? And frankly, I've had the turnover to the F&I manager when I bought a car. In fact, it was at one of your dealerships. I'm not giving you a plug or anything, but it was a very palatable experience. And just because you go from one person to another doesn't mean you're destroying some sort of customer satisfaction.
Well, I think the other thing to keep in mind here is that this is still a very complex process. And a lot of times consumers will do their shopping, they'll think they know what they want when they come to the dealership, and there's other options that are available to them that they may not have known about. And again, that level of complexity, a salesperson who's also dealing with all the product knowledge and the delivery process and now all the technology of pairing all the instruments and getting customers informed, that's a huge undertaking then to understand the complexities of the financial services arrangements and some of the benefits that might be out there. Again, maybe it's a lease versus a retail trade. Maybe they were dead set on purchasing the car, but leasing might address their needs better. And so a lot of good things happen out of it going into a financial services office as well, that if you have a right consultant in there that can help make that deal even a better deal for the consumer. So,
Gabe, you deal with all different types of retailers. What do you see going on out there?
We see a lot, and this topic is a common topic right now. Getting this question, and it's not so much can we sell F&I without an F&I manager? It's should we sell F&I without an F&I manager?
Good point.
I have clients from coast to coast, dealer clients, and some of my largest clients are dealerships who have adopted this model of going without a dedicated F&I manager or a turn system to an F&I department. Those are specific clients, though. These are large, independent used car dealerships. So one has to ask, is that a different process? Is there a different exception from the customer? We saw one notable large national used car brand do this years ago, right? Abandon the typical F&I process. I haven't seen it work quite as well with new car dealerships, and I'm not sure necessarily exactly why that might be, but I am seeing it. The other thing, to Ron's point, is we are seeing the highest adoption rate from customers, right? Customers are buying F&I products at a higher clip than ever before. F&I margins are at their highest point. Penetration is at its highest point. So a properly educated customer is deciding, yes, I do want the benefit of these protection programs in place. So the trick is, how do we provide that education and opportunity to analyze the options sooner in the process?
How do you?
There are a lot of different ways, right? It's your technology, your internet savviness, right? Are you giving opportunities for the customer to go through a buying process, excuse me, earlier on? And is F&I part of that education process, along with the vehicle make and model, trade-in value, credit decisions? There's a lot of complexity in buying a vehicle, which is why customers depend on in dealership personnel.
Why do you see customers getting more of their finance at the retail outlet?
Because of options, right? Because of options. You've got better options at the dealership. You have access to dealership personnel who are taking a look at the profile and offering the best opportunity for the customer. We just saw recently posted October year over year. Payments keep going up, right? Credit credit rates are going up. Payments are going up. Average used car payment has gone up more than $20 year over year. New car, almost $30 year over year. So customers are borrowing more money, and financing is more important.
I always thought, they talk about going into the F&I box in the back of the dealership. One thing you could do, and I'm being semi-facetious here, is put the F&I office in the front of the dealership and have it all windows, so you're not in the box anymore. And like I say, I'm half kidding, but in a way, physical location does matter. It would take away the feeling of being in the box, which is the big customer complaint that comes up a lot.
We dedicate our business to bringing value to our dealer customers. Right? We do a lot of education, training, and assist them in achieving better results. We're not talking about total time to complete the process, and I think that's the misconception. It's customer engagement. Is the customer engaged? Do they feel like every part of the process makes sense? Or are they waiting? Waiting for the F&I office is like being on hold without musical hold. Could you imagine a world today where you wouldn't be on musical hold? You'd be going nuts. We're a society whose attention level has dropped to an all-time low. Even professional sports is facing this problem.
Well,
so of course we're dealing with this.
How about the proposition of, while they're waiting, giving them an iPad and looking at videos of F&I products? Is that a viable way to kind of familiarize them?
That was older technology. We started that a few years ago, but we found, again, staffing's really important, and everybody wants to hold their costs back, but again, it's such an important part of our business. We have to make sure that we're properly staffed to get the customers through there on a timely basis. So, although the iPads we gave out with the preloaded videos in there, that was nice and cute, the bottom line is that, again, there is a level of frustration that they're sitting there going through this, and they're watching everything going on in the dealership. It's crazy. They see other people going in, because normally the salesperson say, sit right here, the F&I manager will come out and talk to you. So they're watching this F&I manager, and other people are going in there, and they're going, I thought I was next, So we have found that the best way to solve that is to have the proper staffing, human engagement. Someone again, changing the sales process a little bit, where rather than wait there, maybe it's a good time to go through the operation of the vehicle. Again, traditionally they would go through F&I, and then after that they would do the delivery. And so now we try to integrate other parts of the delivery process, go set their first appointment in the service drive while they're waiting, trying to keep that engaged. I heard an interesting story one time, and it was about the airlines and how they wanted to cut down the complaints of waiting for luggage. So what the airlines did by accident is they put the gates as close to the baggage area as possible. So what happened was the consumers would get off the planes, boom, 5 minutes later they'd be sitting at their, the terminal waiting for their luggage to come out, and the process still takes the same time. So one airline went further back, and they said, we're going to park further away, and the customers walked from the getting off the airplane to the baggage increased tenfold, but they didn't mind. By the time they got there, their bags were done. The time didn't change at all, but it was just the consumer engagement. And I think we look at that in our business saying, we can't have the customers sit around doing nothing. We got to keep them engaged somehow, some way. And that's helped a lot. It really has. To your point, it's, the videos, that was old technology. New technology is human engagement.
How many iPads didn't you get back?
That was part of the other problems. Or somebody, whoops.
Yeah. Well, and I think we have to recognize that customer expectations are changing, and they're changing rapidly. We have to understand that there is an entire generation that was born in the digital age. So the expectation and how they cast their vote by spending their money and the way they consume just about anything anymore has rapidly evolved. Mm-hmm. And when you look at the way we transact in the automotive industry, because of the complexities, because of everything involved in a vehicle transaction, I think some customers are shaken a little bit that the process isn't slightly different. We're heading that direction, though.
So what does Ally do that's specifically addressing this issue?
We're experimenting, right? We're testing, we're learning, we're trying out with different technologies. Ally's in a unique position where we're an indirect lender, right? We're making buying decisions. We're also an insurance provider offering F&I products and F&I consulting. So we see it on both ends of the transaction. We're testing and learning from all of our dealer partners. dealer customers, I should say. And we're seeing this model is in fact working, and we're allowing an opportunity to implement those models elsewhere. But we still believe in the dealer model. We still believe that the F&I manager plays an incredibly crucial role in the entire process. What that process looks like, and it's the entire process in the future, remains to be seen. It will be different. How so? We don't know yet.
Ron, how successful are you at getting customers to do all this pre-work online? Is that at all popular?
So, you know, I compare it to the electrification of cars. You know, it's something that a lot of people are talking about. There's a lot of excitement towards, you know, taking that transaction deeper and deeper. But the the level of engagement from the consumers is still really low because of the complexity. I think a lot of it has to do with, you know, you get your screen at the comfort of your home, and you might have a little bit more information that you need to help make a decision. So you got to call the dealership anyways. You got to talk to somebody anyways, and it gets a little frustrating. For the stores or the retail outlets that have gone 100% and try to get to 100%, they still have a lot of, I this past weekend I had a chance to stop by a Echo Park, the Sonic effort, Echo Park, and then and then right next door to that, I was in San Antonio. There's a Carvana, and I went and looked at those two things, and I kind of dug into Carvana a little bit, and it's still pretty intimidating for a consumer, I think, to take the process. I think some people have embraced it, but it's a very small percentage. So we keep looking at the best technologies out there. We keep kind of testing different things, different attachments to our websites to make it easier for our customers to take the deal deeper and deeper into the transaction. But the level of engagement is still relatively low. You know, it's in our case, it's probably less than 5%.
What about customer self-selling? How effective is that? At least setting up the going into the F&I office, where an informed customer is more likely to buy something than a person that's just learning about it for the first time.
I don't know that that's necessarily the case. I think an informed customer who has had experience, a positive experience, is certainly more likely.
I mean, somebody that, for instance, looks at F&I products online, if it's available, like on a dealership website, videos and stuff like that, and then goes into the dealership and is familiar enough with the product to say, you know, I know something about that, I'll take that, versus learning about it for the first time.
Extremely important, in my opinion. It's you know, that's where I think the rubber meets the road right now, is that maybe not necessarily having the transaction totally completed, but they have all this information available to them, and at least it opens up a conversation. In the olden days, we used to always ask our salesperson to make sure they mentioned the service contract that was available, and if they came in the office, we'd get upset. But the reason why is because that's a good thing. The more information we give our customers, and they could be thinking about it, and you don't have to start from square one, you know, after this whole long process, and then to start at square one, I think is not fair for the customer either. So it's very important. And
Ron mentioned Echo Park. I think they're actually a really good case study. Now it's in its infancy. It's growing.
Why don't you describe a little what it is?
So Echo Park is Sonic's used car arm, right? It's the division of Sonic Automotive that is used cars only, similar to a CarMax, Carvana, Vroom. You're seeing a lot of these are popping up.
It's supposed to be very user friendly.
Very user friendly, but I think when you look at the Echo Park model, it's actually a hybrid model. The customers are still coming into the dealership, taking delivery at the dealership, at the location. Total time to complete the process may not be dramatically different. The difference is in the individuals who are shepherding that customer through the process. You have one individual that you're dedicated to. The customer can go online. The pricing is transparent. It's very simple. It's very simple, not very complex, and it's non-negotiable. And everything's available to them online. So service contracts, extended warranties, all the F&I products is available to the customer. And most times they're making their decisions before they enter into the dealership. By the time they show up, they understand what they're getting themselves into, they understand what their payments are, and they're really there just to take delivery.
Well, good. I'm afraid with that we're going to have to wrap it up. But very interesting dive into what's going on the F&I part of the retail business. Thank you all for this very interesting discussion.
Thank you very much.
thanks for having us.
At Ally, we look at every aspect of your dealership to help it shine. Not shiny enough? We'll literally shine up everything.
Danny, take it to the lid.
You got it, my man.
Yeah.